It is January 10th, 2021, lesson 102. I share God's will for happiness for me. So yesterday I introduced the idea of sin and how it's always missing the point in terms of where you're seeking God. Okay? If you have been following me up to this point, you have chosen to seek God, I guess. And you find God the moment that you don't have to seek God. So the introspection is always understanding that you are more than enough, that you are self-sufficient in terms of your self-love, and that you don't have to seek anything outside of yourself. Now, it's very difficult to understand truth. Why? Because we have been told what truth and love are, so we have adopted these misconceptions of what that looks like. So when I introduced this idea, I basically said that there is a difference between believing something that works and then knowing something that works. Now, when we are understanding this, we have to see that there's a difference of having heard the truth and having discovered it as an inner reality. So that's what knowing truth is, okay? And they say that many are called but few are chosen, and that, as we start to unravel and create things within ourselves, that is very solipsistic, okay? That it's all in our minds, and it's very difficult for us to get out of our ego. And why is that? Because if this is all our dream, then none of this actually matters, if that makes sense. But nonetheless, we go beyond what our self is, because at the end of the line, the final doorway, we have to surrender what we think truth and love are, basically because the ego thinks it is the source of all life, okay? And that is the only death that we actually experience, because that is the only thing that is trying to hold us within this realm, okay? So when we are discovering truth as an inner reality, we are changing that idea that many are called and few are chosen, and starting to understand that many are called but few choose to follow. So truth is always being able to see that truth is always in front of us. But we choose to see it or not in every single moment. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious. And moving forward from there, we see where sin comes in factor, right? Because these are the guilty self-condemnations because of the consequence of the primitive views that we have of God as being angry, destructive, and needing to be appeased. So we see this with the Ark of Noah, okay? That God, restarted the entire world, and because we have this idea that the angry father is trying to punish us, then we continuously have this need to suffer, okay? You don't want to suffer because there is no need to suffer, right? Suffering is a choice, pain is inevitable nonetheless, but you feel like you need to suffer because it buys you something. It buys you some form of attention, some form of approval, love from your father, right? It could be as above, so below, so it can even be from a micro understanding that you didn't receive love from your father or your mother, and even seeing it from the other perspective where we're trying to manipulate God to find salvation. That's, if I do this, then I will receive this because of that. And again, you're seeing it from the lower perspective. You're seeing it from the lower paradigm where it's not as evolved as it would be if you didn't see it as dualistically, right? God is not discerning, right? It's like understanding the sun. The sun doesn't discern where it's going to have the rays shown. It just does it, right? Of course, there's more areas that it shines more intensely, and that's because that's just how the world is actually formed. If we didn't have it the way it did, then we would burn or freeze to death. So things are the way they're supposed to be because that's how the world was accepted as. Okay, so the more you accept, the more you'll be able to love. Okay, and that's how you free yourself and you free others, because basically as you continuously put yourself in these suffering situations, um, you're becoming a slave, right? And the same thing that we mentioned with the allegory of the cave, Plato's cave, you're a slave in a cave. So I am the one that unshackled himself and saw truth out in the world and saw the mountains for what they are, and then I saw truth within myself, and I'm trying to show you that you can do the same thing. Now, it doesn't mean that I am enlightened. I do not claim such things. I've just had what you would call enlightening experiences, satori, samadhi, and that is just subjective. My experience could be completely different from yours, and most oftentimes these experiences are ineffable because you can't really capture everything that experience has provided you in terms of words. Like, as you're going through that process and you in that bliss, you can't even remember what happened because it's almost so beyond you in your mind that it's almost impossible to even find the words. All you can know is what was in this realm and how you were in the other realm at the same time. So it's your choice, right? You cannot fail to find it when you learn it's your choice. So when you're starting to understand that I share God's will for happiness for me, you start to see that everything is a choice. You find peace in everything, you find love in everything, and you cannot fail to find it when you learn it's your choice. So now you're taking on the responsibility, right? And of course, there is a balance between being able to let the universe take responsibility, but again, it always starts with you, that allows the universe to unfold the way it's supposed to. Because if you keep thinking that it's like your father and that you're going to have this reluctance and resistance towards life, then that's where you're going to manifest. It's going to be very difficult for you to have the things that are needed to be attracted to you to reach a level that things are happening through you, right? At first, things were happening to you, now for you, and now through you. And that's the difference between getting deeper and deeper within your own self and your own cognitive and spiritual and emotional awareness within yourself. So as you start to share God's will for happiness for yourself, then you start to see how it's always been that choice that you are making in every single moment, because that's what you're choosing to allow when the world is allowing you to raise your consciousness and allow you to love harder and deeper.